I gave them $50 million. Do I really care?
We're at the point now we're at the greatest transfer in history of wealth, and they're not ready. But you've got to hold the not-for-profit to real accountability, real measurement. They're great at what they do. They don't understand that piece of the puzzle.
If you are a philanthropist or a wealth manager that's supporting someone, a client, high net worth client that's interested in philanthropy, you might have a blind spot, and we're going to talk about that today. Steve, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, John.
Steve, first, just who are you?
It's a good question. Steve Rosenberg. I'm a philanthropic advisor. I have a company called the GSD Group. I would tell you what GSD stands for, but you could probably figure it out. I can say the G and the D, but I don't want to curse with the S. And I work with people who want to make a difference in the world.
Well, I feel like let's start at the core at the beginning here, which is how are you finding people that want to give, right? And right, because I think most, and I want you to sort of describe how you classify yourself, because I feel like my mindset right now is in the wealth management space, right? But you're not advising on what to invest in. You're not helping them figure out how to like parse their funds out so that they can figure out this goes towards the boat and this goes towards retirement. So, it seems like such a narrow niche to go, hey, we're just going to focus on nonprofit. Why nonprofit? Because it seems, frankly, more profitable, I imagine, to go after the folks that want to just like preserve their money, preserve their wealth, grow their wealth. How did you get into that space to begin with? And yeah.
So, look, I started my career in the sports and entertainment world. And the sports world was super different back then. And about 20 years ago, or maybe a little 25, I don't remember, I ended up in the not-for-profit space. But I was in the not-for-profit space of venues, museums, performing arts centers, aquariums, that sort of thing, building them, helping them become self-sufficient, earned revenue as opposed to contributed revenue. And I developed this niche in not-for-profits. I ended up going to some cause-related things, running a couple of big orgs. And along the way, there's not a not-for-profit in the country who is completely self-sufficient on earned income. They all rely on contributed income. And while I'm not a classically trained development officer, meaning like a hospital and a university isn't going to want me to run their development office because they have certain metrics that they go, I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars because people give to people that they know, like, and trust who work with incredible organizations, right? Mm-hmm. It's that simple. When you go beyond that, it becomes way too complicated.
Sure.
So you start to meet people and you think about, and you ask them. I'm a very inquisitive person, so I ask about their journey and how they got there. And I'm a serial networker. I wrote a book a couple years ago called Make Bold Things Happen on the networking journey and like why networking is so important. So to me, any room I get into, I want to meet as many people as I can, not from I want to find business perspective, just because I just find people interesting. And within that, I always get down to, their philanthropic journey at some point. By the way, that's not an interesting first question. But at some point you have a coffee and meet people and you get to know. And I just really believe in the not-for-profit sector. The private sector is great. They're not solving the world's problems. The government is ill-equipped to solve a lot of the world's problems, but there are some great NGOs out there that really do good work. And we're sitting in a situation in the world that the world needs help, right? Whether, again, it's hungry people, it's elderly people, and we're at the point now we're at the greatest transfer in history of wealth, right? Billions and billions and billions of dollars are being transferred because we had that other generation that made all this money, and you have all these kids, sorry to call them kids, but they're kids who are going to inherit this money, and they have a great responsibility to do well and do good with that money, and they're not ready. And sometimes the parents or grandparents haven't prepped them. So I just sort of got into it by accident, frankly. If it was up to me, I'd be the commissioner of Major League Baseball, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
He's coming for your job wherever you are, by the way. Just why?
But that didn't work out.
Right.
And so I just think that this is super important. There's not a lot of people in my space, but to your first question, I'm additive to wealth managers. I am, like I said, I'm not, don't come to me if you want to make more money. It's a big mistake. But the wealth managers do this to a point, but they're really still going to try to help you. They're going to set up your DAF. They're going to maybe help you set up to some legally your family office, but they're not going to help you think about what buckets you want to give to, what's important to you. If you're at a certain age, you want to get your grandchildren involved. That's where I can be super helpful. And again, it is, you said it right, Jon, it is about as narrow a sliver of opportunity as I think that you could possibly find, but it's meaningful when it hits.
Right. No, that. Let me ask this: when you're thinking about the wealth managers that kind of, because that seems like, and we talked about this before, the obvious avenue for this. That if wealth managers that are working with different clients understand that this is a blind spot, or an added value, or even just something they can get off of their plate and give to somebody else to manage for their client, you're the logical choice. But I guess help wealth managers understand where that gap is so you can be a partner to them.
You just said it perfectly. I'm not looking to compete with them in any way, shape, or form. The question is, people want to make as much money as they can, as they should. And if I come in and they introduce me, what's my fee structure going to be? And is that money, in my opinion, I don't know why they don't want to bring me in, is that money that they think that they could get, and can they get them to a point where it's close enough and they don't really need an expert? I mean, I'm sure in your business, right, people maybe don't use you and they use somebody lesser because maybe they can save a penny or two or three.
Right.
And are the results there? Probably not, but it's close enough. And I just find we're in a society where people want to maximize their income, and to bring in a third-party subcontractor is, we'll just do it. We'll figure it out. Now they have this thing called AI.
Yeah.
We'll run it through ChatGPT,
Sure.
and we'll figure out what the best case scenario for these people is. This business really needs human interaction. You've got to sit down with these philanthropists and really understand their goals and build a very unique plan for them. Grant management systems are grant management systems, but help them to understand what their dollar is doing. Don't just sit back and wait for the not-for-profit to give you a shiny annual report, because they only tell you that they're doing good, right? And by the way, many of them are, but you've got to hold the not-for-profit to real accountability, real measurement. And, sometimes if you're a big enough donor, maybe there's a program that you're funding. Well, how many people did it really impact? And was it the impact that you expected? No wealth manager ever. Sorry. They're great at what they do. They don't understand that piece of the puzzle. So I actually think me being brought in will make their clients happier and maybe give them more money to put into their funds.
Well, let me ask you this, just to challenge the that whole logic. I've got two things competing, right? So whenever we do video productions with clients and we're thinking about goals and we're thinking about our target audience and then we're drilling down into messaging, I always like to position things as a WIFM, what's in it for me. But empathetically, you should be thinking about your client, right? So what's in it for them with whatever story you're telling them? Why should they care, right? It's going to be kind of crude, but if I'm a philanthropist, I've made my money, I want to give it to an organization. Yeah, I want them to do well. I want to know that they're being stewards of the funds, but I gave them $50 million. Do I really care how they're doing? And just to challenge you for a second, what do you hear from philanthropists? Do they really care, or do they feel like they check the box and their heart feels good and then they're back out on the golf course? I mean, what are you seeing out there?
It's a great question.
Sorry, philanthropists. I'm not trying.
That's a great question. Not enough care.
Okay.
And because they're waiting for the annual report. Oh, look what they said they did. Right, if you said to me, you ask anybody how they're doing, it's always great. And I'm not saying that anybody's not doing well, but there are certain questions that don't get asked. And if you were if I was giving somebody $50 million, I wouldn't be on the golf course the next day. I mean, I might be. It probably would be. Well, because if I have $50 million, I probably...
Yeah, well, you get a cell phone. You can call from the golf course and figure out how
But I would be holding those people to significant... By the way, if it was $1 million, forget 50, if it was $1 million, they would be held to very significant... But it doesn't mean I would be micromanaging them. I would trust that they have a good team. They can get the work done. But this is real money that can make real differences. And I would want to... Here's my... expectations, and quarterly at the very least, I would want to see reports so that I'm not waiting until the end of the year. That's the mentality that is not getting through to these people. They think that they don't have the right to ask the questions. They don't have the right to set the KPI standards.
Right.
They just give money and then they just go play golf or tennis or whatever, or read a book or whatever it is.
Well, my point was more, do they care to the degree that they're like, and push back on me on this, right? But if I'm a philanthropist, I just want to know, is it let's get in the mindset. Is it, I just want to know that I checked the box and I did this good? Are they passionate about the cause generally that they're giving to, and they're really invested? Is it a toss up? And I guess let me ask this, recourse, right? Using the example, you're getting the quarterly updates. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been a steward of these funds, you've been brokering this for them, and you're like, hey, the nonprofit's not actually performing
100%,
and we got to reroute some of these funds?
100%. I've also been on the other side because I've been both running not-for-profits and serving as a consultant to the not-for-profit itself, when we've been challenged by sophisticated donors who say, what are you doing? Like, where'd my money go?
Yeah.
And so you have to train these philanthropists, and you have to also, simultaneously, if I'm on the other side, you've got to train the not-for-profits to make sure that the dollars are being used as wisely as possible. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't have overhead, right? The one dumb question, and I will use the word dumb, that most philanthropists say is, what's your overhead? And when I was running a not-for-profit, I would say, well, what do you want it to be? Like, there's no answer I'm going to give you.
That used to drive me nuts, because we would sit on these boards, and I was on a couple nonprofit boards, and it would drive me nuts. Sorry to interrupt you, but that when we would talk about an initiative and everyone would just go, well, we don't want to make this incredible initiative move forward because of the perceived cost, right? Like, I understand we have to be stewards of the funds and you don't want to just overspend on stuff. But if there was a tangible ROI, why aren't you spending the money to gain the return on investment, right? And I think that this might be, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, actually, if you remember when the story broke, when ALS, the Ice Bucket Challenge, right? And that team that did this really brilliant campaign that was super successful. And then all this news came out afterwards that their executive team was overpaid. And I don't know the answer. I didn't look into it further than this, so maybe you'll push back here. But I felt like whatever you were paying them was worth it for what they were achieving, right? The amount of money that they were making relative. So I remember being on nonprofit boards that were going like, well, we don't want to be like them and be overspent. And I'm like, wouldn't you kill to be like them? They're crushing it towards their mission and goal.
It is maddening. And the answer I'll tell you is, when I was running a large not-for-profit in the city of Philadelphia, you look on Guide Store, I think it's called Candid now, and on any 990, you can see how much the CEO and the significant people are making. You're making that much. How much should I make? Because it's a $50 million organization.
Right.
If this was in the private sector, I'd be making triple. So you get what you pay for. And if you don't pay somebody, pay somebody $150,000, and we're stewarding your money. You want to make sure that these people are highly paid, highly trained. One of the biggest really dilemmas, in my opinion, is young people out of college don't choose the not-for-profit sector because they've been trained their whole life to say, you got to make as much money as you can when you come out of school. And the not-for-profit sector versus the private sector, if we could get the pay scale, it doesn't have to be equal, but up, and motivate and incentivize these young, super smart people coming out of these great schools to come and make a difference. And by the way, you can still make a good living. We wouldn't have to worry about KPIs and metrics and all of this. But if you come out of the University of Chicago and you are an economics major and you're super smart, you're going to go work on Wall Street, or you're going to go work in tech or something where you can monetize the last 4 years that you spent.
Of course.
You're not going to go work at the American Cancer Society where you're going to get scrutinized. Oh my God, he's making $75,000.
Right.
Pay people more, right? Because otherwise we're living in the not-for-profit sector. I always say it's in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? Because not saying everybody's a moron, but we can't win with all social workers. You need business people in these roles to make decisions. There are billions and billions of dollars being spent, most of the time unwisely.
So I'm a big Michael Gerber fan with the E-Myth, and and having that role, the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur, and those personas need to be in every business for it to thrive, right? Like, in your example of whatever that nonprofit would be, the social workers or the technicians are the ones that actually deliver the service and the work, but they need structure and support from a manager. And here we actually have an inverted org board, right? Like I see myself as somebody whose my job is to support the producers above me, that support the editors, support the shooters. That it's inverted here, and I think that that's a good way to think about it. Instead of going like this top down structure, it's going. No, the entrepreneur is supposed to be the visionary, but it's also creating all the support systems for the managers and then the technicians.
Without question. And I'm not knocking the social workers. We need social workers. Social workers take care of a lot of people. But think of it on a university setting. The professors are not running the business at a university.
Right.
They're the content providers. And then you have actual business people running things, hopefully they're smart business people, but it's not the economics professor is not running the school.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And it's the same thing. We can't be afraid to bring people in that can make good, smart, sometimes difficult decisions. Right.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a super good example. I was working at I was the chief marketing officer of the Jewish Federation here in Greater Philly. My first stint at a big sort of organization of that kind. While I was there, I was also the GM and the publisher of the Jewish Exponent, the big weekly Jewish paper. Exponent was losing money hand over fist. And they said, what do you think's going on there? So I go down to the offices and I'm like, well, the first thing is nobody's at work, nobody's doing anything. So long story short, I came up with a plan. We were going to fire the entire staff. We're going to outsource, with the exception of sales. We're going to outsource content and production. I had 8 production people a week putting out one weekly paper. And that happened on Monday and Tuesday. And the rest of the week, I didn't have that much to do. But highly smart, educated, quality people. But when you have one paper, didn't need it.
Yeah.
We saved a fortune. I got crucified by the community, by other media, et cetera, et cetera. Within 1 year, we were breaking even, and we even made a little bit of money, a little bit. But I wasn't afraid to make a bold, rational decision based on facts and data. And oftentimes in a not-for-profit sector, they're afraid to make decisions. Look, this is something that's super controversial. And there's a lot of people that think, like, we've given trillions of dollars to eradicate cancer, right? I often wonder, and I look and say, where's all that money gone? Like, how we put people on the moon, like we've done such incredible things. We can't figure out how to get rid of cancer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I don't know, but things sometimes happen, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. I sometimes don't know who's holding who accountable and what are the real metrics behind it. And sometimes there's so much money involved. Sometimes you wonder, like, does anybody want any of this stuff to get solved because it's bad business?
Hey, if you like this short video and want something like this for your brand, visit videocityinc.com. So I think that just the idea, and I get it from a media perspective, you want to demonstrate authority, from a PR perspective and calming presence and all these different things. But I think authenticity, this comes back to what I talk about all the time. Authenticity is the most important thing. And I think just really simply, if powers that be just at the time just went, you know what, maybe remove an expletive from this, but just go, we don't know. Honesty. And we're doing our best, and we're going to keep up. And guess what? We're going to tell you to do this right now. And as soon as we know we don't need to do that anymore, we're going to change it. And I think people would, listen, some of the same people would go, well, they don't know, so I'm not going to do that. And some of the people would go, well, they don't know, so I'm going to listen. But at least you'd have this like, instead of this gotcha stuff. Definitely a tangent we just went on, but I
like it. The authenticity and the honesty and honest communication, to me, I write about this in my book, number one, and where you find this has nothing to do with not-for-profit, but you go to the airport and your plane's delayed. Nobody should honestly be upset that things happen. Things happen every day, right? People get upset because they begin to lie to you. Like just the other day, my son goes on a plane, it's delayed, they say mechanical issue. 20 minutes later, they find out it was really a catering issue. Then they're going to then the pilot times out, they're going to bring in a new pilot. Pilot never shows up, right? And just all the bad. So he wasn't upset that there was an issue, right?
Right.
But tell me what's going on so that I can then make an informed decision on what I have to do. And that's just one. And the airlines are the worst of the worst of the worst. But anybody, and what I love what you just said, because I said the exact same thing. If you don't know, it is okay to sometimes say,
I don't know.
I don't know. If I came in here and I was doing a podcast and I asked you a question and you didn't know, I suspect you would say, I don't know, but I will find out and I will let you know. I would respect that way more than if you told me one thing and it was wrong, then I would lose all respect for you.
Well, you lose trust. I mean, I think that's the big thing is that
it's number one.
You lose trust. It puts we think about this a lot in terms of our production process. Setting expectations is the biggest thing. So our whole brand motto is an elevated experience. It comes down to the idea that we're easy to work with. I try to train our team and have built this over time, frankly, from learning with bumps on my head, right? We do a brand film for you, a commercial for one of your nonprofits, right? We tell the story. Let's say we interview 5 stakeholders. We've got beautiful. Let's say it's a Jewish relief agency. So it's food delivery. Hunger relief. So we're going to get B-roll of the warehouse. We're going to get B-roll of delivery. We're going to interview a couple folks. We're going to stitch it together in a story. Now, in video production, there are all kinds of layers to that process. There is color correction that needs to be done. There's music. There's transitions. There's the B-roll being incorporated properly, et cetera. Lower third titles for everyone who spoke, et cetera. Well, before you get anywhere there, you need your story. And so we might lay down a narrative baseline. Here's what this person said. Then this person's going to say the next thing. Now, we call this a pain tolerance. So if I'm working with you and I know you've never made a video before, I'm going to assume your pain tolerance for seeing raw video is going to be very low, right? So what's best for me is that I don't polish up the video and waste my time color correcting clips that you're going to say, hey, actually, I need you to cut that clip out, right? I'd rather you see or hear the narrative first, approve it, and then we move to the next level. But some clients don't have a pain tolerance for that. Right. So we will actually take the time when working in those environments and we will warn them. We'll say, hey, we're going to do a little extra polish on this so it's a nice, clean video for you. Just FYI, might be a little less efficient because you might decide you want to cut some things out that we've cleaned up. On the flip side, if I'm working with an ad agency that has a very high pain tolerance because they look at raw assets all the time, I'll go, hey, I'm sending you a super rough cut. Close your eyes, just listen to it, make sure the story's right, and then we'll polish this thing up. And so, but if I don't set, and this is what I talk to the team about all the time, if I don't set that expectation up front, if I don't warn you, hey, here's what's happening, here's why we did it, and here's what's going to happen next. We have clients who've seen a raw cut, I made this mistake before, and they panic. And they're like, you cannot think this is the final video. And I'm like, of course not, it's the first draft. But now you don't trust anything I say to you for the rest of the process, and we're fighting uphill. Whereas if I set the expectations properly, cruising altitude speed.
But it's the same thing, getting back to your point about the wealth managers. If they could ask the right questions, they bring in accountants when they need accountants. They bring in lawyers when they bring in lawyers. It's the same thing with somebody like me who could help them set the tone with their client to do more, to get more value, so that ultimately that philanthropist, that donor, the client, whatever you want to call them, trust that wealth manager. But like, I know for me, I'm not a high net worth person, but I do have somebody that helps my wife and I advise on our money. I ask them everything, and I trust him. Got a mortgage, I trust that person. Yep. And that's our go-to. Everybody has a different go-to, but somebody like me would be extremely valuable to him when it comes to high net worth people. It's all about trust, authentic, honest communication. That's how you build a following. That's how you get more clients. That's how you keep clients. And it sounds so easy sitting here, but it's not.
Well, let's go to this one more time on the WIFM side of things, because I really want to press this point. If I'm a financial advisor, wealth manager, I'm working with my client for years. They're at the point where they're now able to be philanthropic, et cetera. Why do I care about how they're being stewards of the money enough to bring someone like you in? And maybe I don't, but like in your case, yeah.
I think it depends on who the client is. If it's somebody who you want to really satisfy, if it's somebody that's asking questions about philanthropy and about how can they make an impact, I think that you would want to bring somebody in to help answer questions that you really don't know anything about. If it's somebody just says, yeah, set me up a donor advised fund and I'm going to write checks out of that, don't waste your time with me, because Now, I could still have an impact on that person, but to the wealth manager, are they going to bring more money in? Am I creating more work for them? Nobody wants to bring in somebody that brings in more work. I'm added value. When do you bring in added value, and how does it help? And there are plenty of sophisticated donors out there that need another layer of, let's call it black label, white glove, concierge type service. Most donors, as was your very original point, aren't sophisticated enough to even know to ask these types of questions.
Right.
So the wealth manager is just setting them up with whatever assets that they know are available, whatever tools to save, on their taxes and that sort of thing, and moving on. I'm suggesting that there is a whole way that you could add me in that we could really have a dramatic impact on society. Now, and maybe I'm too aspirational in that everybody should see that.
Right.
And by the way, I'm not like one of these spiritual, aspirational guys at all. I just know from being out there that there's a whole ecosystem of not-for-profits that need the help. I see all this money out there, and I see a way to help. Look, the reality is there are too many not-for-profits. Many of them are duplicative in nature. They all need to thrive and survive on contributed income.
Yep.
Donors are exhausted, exasperated. They don't know who to give to, where to give to, which is really the last reason why you could bring somebody like me in, because I have a lot of data and a lot of research on the best of the best, right? Who is really doing the most impactful work, so that I can get you one layer above whatever it is. If it's in child hunger, if it's in elder care, if it's religiously oriented, I know who the go-tos are. And to me, that's a good benefit. But if you said tomorrow, I want to give to hunger relief, it would take you days to sort through. If you were really focused on it, it would take you days to go through the organizations, their impact statements, and you come out and you would say, I don't know, let's just flip a coin because they all seem pretty good to me. Because you're reading their annual reports.
Got it.
And they all say they're doing unbelievable work.
Right.
So you need somebody that can cut through that. So that's the other layer. But again, it's so hard.
Well, so it's, I think the reason there's different hunger organizations too is that they have different focuses, different approaches, different, and so I imagine that plays into it as well, and you're able to filter that down. So I think that what I'm hearing is that if philanthropy is kind of like a secondary thought, you're trying to get tax advantages, or just it's something that your wealth manager just kind of does for you. Set up a DAF. Don't worry about you. If you are a sophisticated donor that wants to have an impact, that actually is embracing philanthropy, cares about how the organization is being a steward with the funds, cares about the impact that you're having, most wealth managers are not set up to do that sort of deep dive. And that's where you want to bring somebody in that, what do we even call this role, by the way?
It's funny. If you have an idea, let me know.
Oh, we're just drum roll right now. We're going to.
I'm not sure. I talk about it as being a consultant to philanthropists, a philanthropy whisperer, advisor. But then I have to start to qualify it, as I did with you when we met, because I don't do wealth management. I'm not doing this. I'm telling people more of what I don't do than what I do, which, as you know, in sales is not ever, it's like I'm violating every code that there is and every rule. But if I just say, philanthropy consultant,
whatever that means. Right. Well, consultant for the most part, you immediately shut down.
I hate the word consultant.
Yeah,
period.
Everybody else
You would
does
think
too.
a consultant would come up with a new word other than consultant, right?
You got to hire a consultant for the consultant.
I try to use the word advisor.
Sure.
Because that's what the wealth people call themselves, wealth advisors,
right?
Like that sort of thing.
But now you sound like a wealth advisor, which sounds like you're competing with them.
Right.
Do you ever come in from the nonprofit side where they come in and they go, hey, go help us find philanthropists? Like, where's your network?
Oh, yeah. No, I have more clients on the not-for-profit side where I'm working with actual 501c3s or 501c4s or 7s, helping them on their strategic planning, their governance, their bylaws. Sometimes I will help them raise money. It's very hard to raise money for more than one organization, so I'm singularly focused on one, maybe two. You can only ask so many people for money so many times, no matter how good organizations are. But I really work with them on their planning, I'll do a little bit of marketing for them sometimes, but like not-for-profit is a tax code. And as we said earlier, sometimes you have people who are not business people and they think differently. I think like a business person, and I'm looking at the revenue and the expenses, and this doesn't make any sense. Like, why are you making this decision? And their budget is off, and they're not reforecasting after 6 months. They're just making decisions that are not helpful from a business perspective.
Right.
And I think business, and I think, from a for-profit sector. So I help them with all of that. Sometimes they don't like my answers, but I'm not, if they're going to pay me just to tell them they're doing everything right,
they might as
I
well not do it.
don't take those roles.
Well, so let me ask you this selfishly. You've worked with so many nonprofits. You continue to work with them. You've seen the philanthropy side of it and the expectations for an ROI, right, for the nonprofit to know that there's an impact. We do video production, work with a lot of different nonprofits in terms of creating content, videos for their gala, fundraising videos for social, video podcasting, all these different things. From your perspective, what is the impact? And by the way, we will shut these cameras off if you say the wrong thing. What is the impact of, in all seriousness, what's the impact of video as a marketing tool?
Critical.
That you've seen?
Critical and completely underutilized, mostly because they think big money. Mm-hmm. Because back in the day, video was big money, right? They didn't do commercials, like 30-second traditional TV spots.
Right.
And in today's world, with 8 people like you who have cut the costs down significantly through the use of technology to not use short-form video, right? Long-form video is fine, but out of that, you need to have good shorts that you can post on Instagram and on YouTube, which is really where all the viewers are right now, which most people don't know. Most people don't know that they need to be on YouTube. They post on Facebook, they post on Instagram, and they think they've done it. Nobody, I could tell you in the not-for-profit sector, I shouldn't say nobody, very few are using YouTube effectively at all. To have your CEO or your board chair or somebody to be able to have weekly podcast series.
Yep.
No matter if 10 people listen a week or 10,000 people, it's how you then use that and repurpose that content, right? Mm-hmm. I do a lot of these. And sometimes the shows have great listenership and sometimes they don't. But I have good following and I know how to take both the short form and long form and get a lot of people to watch it. Not-for-profits are not absolutely using this medium effectively enough. And I'm not just saying it because I'm sitting here with you. They need to refocus on this, but they also then need to focus on the distribution, because you don't just do a podcast and say, all right, I did it. It's what you do afterwards with it. And I talk about that with them all the time, but either people are afraid to speak. They see a mic, they clam up.
Sure.
So what comes with, I've done a lot of media training. I brought in media trainers for clients, because you've got to get comfortable with this. You know what the number one fear of people's lives are, is speaking to other people, right? It's so crazy to me, but it is. It's more fearful than anything. But to be able to convey your message. And by the way, no more newsletters. Nobody wants to open your newsletter and an email. But if there was some sort of video, people click. The videos that are super well done at galas get remembered. Yeah. Right? And they need help. There's not enough money. As I said earlier, they're not paying their creative people. These are not people coming out of, Leo Burnett in New York who are running the marketing departments at these not-for-profits. Many of them are super smart people, but they don't have the budgets and the resources available. So this is I would argue that it might be the single most important marketing medium.
Okay.
And particularly, that is also it's also number one that is not being used.
Well, I love hearing that. I mean, look, I'm biased. I think it is, because I think that especially for a nonprofit, for anything you're creating, you need to create an emotional connection. You need to do storytelling, right? And storytelling provides that emotional connection. Good storytelling is going to be sticky, memorable, and you're going to build a better relationship with your target audience. All of that known, I think that it's very interesting to hear somebody on the inside speak about that impact. Do you have any metrics, anecdotes of like, hey, we were struggling in this way, we implemented video in this strategy, and it executed for us? Is there?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of one specific, but I could tell you that if you look at a lot of the things that happened in let's call it the Jewish community after October 7th, with impact stories, with survivor stories. I don't really like to use the word survivor because that should be relegated to the Holocaust folks, but people that were impacted. And if you watch those videos, the ones that are really well done. And I don't mean post-production. I mean just that have the right messaging.
Authentic.
Yeah, authentic,
Yeah.
right? If you look at their numbers, there's millions and millions of views, and people really were smart and took advantage of it, not to waste a crisis kind of moment, but
No, of
because
course.
they realized that this was a way to reach people. The written word is still fine. Newsletters, like I said, are out of it, but there are some very sophisticated organizations that seize the moment and grab the moment. And I don't want to be a focus group of one, but if you scroll through social media, look at any post, even by not-for-profits, their highest engagements are short-form video. It's not, we're celebrating Groundhog Day today.
Yeah.
Who gives a crap? Like, what's the video with it, and what is that connection? The younger people today, this is how they
consume media. And not even just the younger people. I think most folks are opting statistically to watch over read, right? And so I think that I love that you said that. I mean, I think one thing that's just a tip or recommendation is if you're already doing a weekly, biweekly, monthly newsletter, right, to figure out a quick way to convert that, just the same copy, you've already written your script. If you're taking the time to do that, just deliver it as video also. Right.
Well, you said regularity, meaning, the first thing I say to everybody is, you need an editorial calendar.
Yeah.
Right? And everything goes in there. Holidays, your newsletter, your podcast, your video, whatever you're going to do. You can't just go, oh my God, it's Tuesday at 3:00. We didn't post anything today.
Yeah.
That's not a calendar. A real calendar that has intentionality to it, brand focused, okay? And then you've got to do your own measurement and your own you have to have your own KPIs, and don't just say we're going to do video just because we should do video, but like have a purpose around it and continue.
Well, you need to know with anything else. You need to know what success looks like. So if you have a plan,
buy into it, like if I could put all my chips into one thing, and I was a not-for-profit from a marketing perspective, it would be podcasting and video and real intentionality around smart social media that, like I say, included YouTube. Because I'm telling you, they're not thinking about YouTube. Period.
Well, you answered the question correctly, by the way. I don't know if you.
The cameras are still on.
Yeah, they're still on, so we will approve. So, Steve, thanks so much for coming on. This is a pleasure.
Jon. This is fantastic.
Beyond the Frame.
You're doing a great job. Appreciate you.
I think the coolest thing about video podcasting is that it is a workflow game changer. I'm Jon Sherman, founder here at Video City Productions. We've been doing video here since 2008, long time. And one of the things we've learned is that most videos are going to have a long process. What video podcasting does is it shrinks that pre-production process, makes it much more easy to just pick a topic, maybe have a couple outline points. The production process, shorter, easier, just sit down in a turnkey studio like ours and talk. And then that post-production process. Not only are those things faster to cut, you can also generate all of this short-form content very easily from 1 hour of talking. Is video podcasting the end-all be-all? Of course not when it comes to content creation. But is it an absolute workflow game changer? Absolutely. If you like this video and you're considering video podcasting or doing any video project, click the link in the description or visit videocityinc.com.